The expedition begins. On the lush planet of Virtus, green trees reached toward the sky, their leaves glimmering under the bright sun. Strange flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, filling the air with sweet scents. Today was special. A group of alien students was excited to explore their world. They were eager to learn about the legendary creatures known as the Deathworlders. The students gathered at their school, a large dome made of crystal. Their teacher, Professor Tyla, stood at the front, her antennae twitching with excitement. "Today, we will journey into the heart of the jungle," she announced. "We will search for signs of the Deathworlders. Remember, they are known for their strength and bravery." The students buzzed with excitement. Zor, a tall student with bright blue skin, felt a mix of fear and thrill. He had heard stories about the Deathworlders, creatures from another world who could survive in the harshest conditions. Some said they were fierce warriors, while others claimed they were friendly. Zor wanted to find out the truth for himself. As the group set off, they walked along a narrow path that cut through thick vines and towering trees. The sounds of the jungle filled their ears: chirping insects, rustling leaves, and distant calls of unknown animals. The students felt a sense of wonder. Every step brought new sights and sounds, making their hearts race. Zor walked beside his friend, Leela, who had soft green skin and sparkling eyes. "Do you think we'll really see a Deathworlder?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. "I hope so," Zor replied. "I want to see how they fight and what they eat. Maybe we can learn something amazing from them." As they ventured deeper into the jungle, the sun began to rise higher in the sky, casting dappled light across the forest floor. Suddenly, the group heard a loud roar echoing through the trees. The students froze, eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" whispered Nyx, a small, timid student with purple skin. "It could be a Deathworlder," said Tyla, trying to sound calm. "Stay close, everyone. Let's keep moving." They pressed on, their hearts racing. The roar echoed again, this time louder. Zor felt his stomach twist with excitement and fear. He imagined fierce warriors battling monsters, their bravery shining like stars. He wanted to see it all. Finally, they reached a clearing, and what they saw took their breath away. In the center stood a group of humans, Deathworlders, fighting a giant space monster. The creature had long tentacles and sharp claws, its body covered in thick scales. It thrashed wildly, trying to escape the grip of the humans. Zor couldn't believe his eyes. The humans moved with speed and agility, working together to trap the monster. They shouted commands, their voices strong and clear. Zor watched in awe as one of the humans, a tall man with dark hair, leaped onto the creature's back, swinging a strange weapon. The monster roared in anger but couldn't shake him off. The students could hardly breathe. They were witnessing a battle like none they had ever imagined. Zor felt a rush of admiration for the Deathworlders. They were not just legends, they were real, brave beings fighting for survival. As the fight continued, the humans began to gain the upper hand. They used teamwork, coordinating their movements flawlessly. Zor noticed how they supported each other, shouting encouragement and keeping the creature at bay. It was a dance of strength and strategy, and he felt inspired. "Look," Leela pointed, "they're not afraid." Zor nodded, feeling a sense of determination swell inside him. He wanted to learn from these warriors. They were fierce, yet there was a sense of purpose in their actions. They were not just fighting, they were protecting their own. Finally, with a powerful thrust, the humans defeated the monster. It lay still on the ground, and the students cheered in amazement. Zor felt a sense of pride wash over him. These were the Deathworlders he had heard about, fearless and strong. After the battle, the humans gathered around the defeated monster. They began to prepare it for a feast, cutting and cleaning the creature with swift, practiced motions. Zor and his classmates watched closely, curious about what they would do next. "Should we approach them?" asked Nyx, still trembling a little. Tyla nodded. "Yes, But be respectful. They have just fought a battle, and we must show our admiration for their bravery." Gathering their courage, the students stepped forward, approaching the Deathworlders. Zor's heart raced as he neared the tall man who had fought the monster. Hello. We are students from Virtus," he stammered, trying to sound confident. The man turned to them, a smile breaking across his face. "Well met, young ones. I'm Captain Reed. What brings you to our part of the jungle?" Zor's eyes widened. "We wanted to learn about the Deathworlders. We heard stories of your bravery, and we wanted to see it for ourselves." Captain Reed chuckled. "Stories often leave out the hard work and teamwork it takes to be brave. Would you like to join us for our feast? You can learn a lot from us." Zor could hardly believe it. This was an incredible opportunity. "Yes, please," he replied, his excitement bubbling over. As the group gathered around the fire, the students felt a bond forming. They were not just observers anymore. They were part of something greater. Today marked the beginning of their adventure, a journey filled with lessons of courage, friendship, and the strength of the Deathworlders. With full hearts, they prepared to share stories, hoping to learn everything they could from these legendary beings. Little did they know that this day would change their lives forever, opening doors to friendship and understanding they had never imagined. Encountering the Deathworlders, the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting golden rays across the lush landscape of Virtus. The smell of roasted meat wafted through the air as the alien students settled around the fire with Captain Reed and his fellow Deathworlders. Zor felt a rush of excitement coursing through him. This was the moment he had dreamed of, meeting the legendary beings he had only heard about in stories. As the students gathered, Captain Reed began to tell tales of their adventures. "We come from a planet called Earth," he explained, his voice strong and warm. "On our world, survival is a constant challenge. We learn to adapt and fight against the odds." Leela leaned closer, her eyes wide with fascination. "What kind of challenges do you face?" she asked. Captain Reed chuckled softly, the fire flickering in his eyes. "Oh, we face many dangers. From fierce beasts to hostile environments, we learn to overcome everything together." He gestured to his companions, a mix of humans, each with their own unique stories etched across their faces. Zor felt a swell of admiration for these warriors. He wanted to be like them, brave and fearless. "How do you work together so well?" he asked, eager to absorb every word. Another Deathworlder, a woman with short blonde hair named Sarah, smiled. "Teamwork is key. We train hard and we trust each other. In a fight, every person matters. We rely on one another's strengths." As they shared their stories, Zor and his classmates learned about the Deathworlders' past battles, their triumphs and losses. Each tale was filled with lessons about courage, resilience, and the importance of friendship. The alien students were captivated, hanging on every word. Suddenly, a loud rustling noise interrupted their gathering. The jungle fell silent, and the students exchanged worried glances. Zor felt his heart race. What could it be? Captain Reed stood up, his expression serious. "Stay here," he instructed. "We'll check it out." With a swift motion, he gestured for his companions to follow him into the trees. Zor's curiosity got the better of him. He wanted to see what was happening. So he tiptoed after the Deathworlders, Leela close behind. They moved cautiously, parting the thick vines that hung from the trees. The group soon came upon a scene that made Zor's heart stop. In a small clearing, they spotted a massive creature, a three-headed beast with glistening scales and sharp teeth, roaming dangerously close to their camp. Its eyes glowed fiercely, and it looked hungry. Zor gasped. "What is that thing?" he whispered. "An Archon," Sarah whispered back, her voice low. "They're known for being aggressive. We need to be careful." The Deathworlders quickly formed a line, preparing to face the creature. Zor felt both terrified and amazed. These were the heroes he had heard about, ready to defend themselves, and protect their new friends. The students watched as Captain Reed and the others discussed their plan, voices hushed but intense. "We have to distract it," Captain Reed said, his eyes focused. "Sarah, you and Jake take the left. I'll lead it away from the camp. The rest of you, stay behind." Leela grabbed Zor's arm. "Should we help?" she asked, her voice trembling. Zor shook his head. "No, they know what they're doing. We have to trust them." With a quick nod, Captain Reed dashed toward the beast, drawing its attention. The Archon roared, its multiple heads twisting to focus on him. Zor could see the determination in the captain's eyes. He was ready to fight. Sarah and Jake moved in stealthily from the side, throwing rocks to create noise. The Archon turned its heads, confused by the sudden distractions. Zor felt a thrill of excitement. He was witnessing real bravery in action. As the Deathworlders executed their plan, Zor noticed how they communicated without words. Every gesture and movement was precise, showing their years of training. They worked like a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role. Captain Reed sprinted to the edge of the clearing, taunting the Archon, drawing it further away from the camp. Zor watched in awe, feeling a mix of fear and admiration. He had never seen anyone face a creature so fearsome with such confidence. Suddenly, one of the Archon's heads lunged toward Reed, snapping its jaws. But he dodged quickly, using the trees to his advantage. Zor held his breath, hoping the captain would be okay. With a final, powerful leap, Reed managed to outmaneuver the beast. He led it deeper into the jungle, away from the camp. The students cheered quietly, feeling a rush of relief and pride in the human's bravery. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they heard the sound of the Archon's roar fading into the distance. The Deathworlders regrouped, panting but victorious. Captain Reed smiled, though he looked a little shaken. "That was close," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Zor and his classmates rushed to join them, eyes wide with excitement. "That was amazing," Zor exclaimed. "You really fought that creature." Reed chuckled. "It's all in a day's work. But remember, teamwork and strategy are what keep us alive. You witnessed how we rely on one another." The students nodded, absorbing every lesson. They realized that bravery was not just about facing danger. It was about working together and trusting one another. They were learning more than they had ever expected from these legendary warriors. As they returned to the camp, Zor felt inspired. He looked around at his classmates, their faces filled with admiration and excitement. They had witnessed a real-life adventure, and they were now connected to the Deathworlders in a way they had never imagined. That day, Zor and his friends learned what it meant to be brave. They had seen the Deathworlders face danger head-on, and they knew they had much to learn. Their adventure was just beginning, and they were ready for whatever came next, the Feast of Strength. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, the atmosphere around the camp turned festive. The students of Virtus gathered around the fire once more, their hearts still racing from the thrilling encounter with the Archon. The Deathworlders prepared the feast with skillful hands, cutting the meat of the slain creature, while laughter and stories filled the air. Zor watched in awe as the humans worked. They were so confident, moving effortlessly around the fire. The aroma of roasting meat mixed with the scent of herbs made his stomach rumble. He realized he hadn't eaten since morning, and the thought of sharing a meal with the brave warriors filled him with anticipation. "Come, join us," Captain Reed called to the students, waving them over. "It's time to celebrate." With excited chatter, the students approached the fire, their eyes wide with wonder. Captain Reed handed each of them a piece of the roasted Archon meat. "It may look strange, but it's delicious," he assured them. Zor took a bite, and his eyes lit up. The meat was savory and rich, bursting with flavors he had never tasted before. "This is amazing," he exclaimed, his mouth full. The other students nodded in agreement, enjoying the feast. As they ate, the Deathworlders shared stories about their home, Earth. They spoke of their cities, their technology, and the challenges they face daily. On our planet, survival is a test of strength and intelligence, said Sarah. Every day we work to protect our families and communities. Leela, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, asked, "What is the hardest challenge you faced?" Captain Reed leaned back, contemplating. "Once, we faced a creature called a behemoth. It was enormous and strong. We lost many good friends that day. But we learned valuable lessons about working together. In the end, we managed to drive it away, but not without sacrifice." The students listened intently, feeling a mix of admiration and respect for these warriors. Zor felt inspired by their stories. He wanted to be like them, strong and brave, able to face any challenge. After the meal, Captain Reed stood up and called for everyone's attention. "Now that we feasted, let's have some fun." He grinned, a mischievous sparkle in his eyes. "We can show you some of our training exercises. It'll be a good way for you to learn about teamwork." Zor felt a surge of excitement. "Yes, we want to learn," he shouted, his heart racing at the thought of trying out the Deathworlders training. The group moved to a clear area nearby, the fire's glow lighting their way. Captain Reed and Sarah demonstrated various techniques, showing how they combined strength and agility. Zor watched closely, his eyes wide with wonder. "First, we'll practice some basic moves," Sarah explained, demonstrating a series of swift punches and kicks. "It's not just about fighting. It's about balance and coordination." The students lined up, eager to try. Zor felt a thrill of anticipation. He watched as Leela kicked and punched, her movements full of energy. Zor followed suit, mimicking the Deathworlders' techniques. Trying to keep up, Captain Reed moved among the students, offering guidance and encouragement. "Good job. Remember to stay light on your feet," he advised Zor, who focused hard, determined to impress. As they practiced, Zor felt a sense of camaraderie growing among the group. They were all learning together, laughing and cheering each other on. Zor's confidence grew with each movement, his body responding to the rhythm of the exercises. After some time, Captain Reed called for a break. "Now let's test your teamwork," he said, grinning. "We'll play a game that requires cooperation." The students gathered around, curious about the game. Captain Reed explained the rules. They would form 2 teams and attempt to carry a large log from one end of the clearing to the other without dropping it. If they did, they would have to start over. Zor felt excitement bubbling inside him. "Let's do this," he shouted, his determination rising. He joined Leela and Nix, forming a team, while Captain Reed led the other team. As they positioned themselves around the log, Zor felt the weight of it in his hands. On 3, he counted down. 1, 2, 3. With a unified effort, they lifted the log and began to move. The weight was heavy, and they had to coordinate their steps carefully. "Left, right," Leela called out, trying to keep everyone in sync. Zor focused hard, feeling the strain of the log, but he pushed through. They stumbled a few times, laughter erupting from their team as they tried to maintain their balance. Each time they dropped it, they would quickly pick it back up, eager to try again. On the other side of the clearing, Captain Reed's team was struggling too, and their shouts of encouragement echoed in the night. Zor could see the competitive spirit in everyone, but more importantly, he felt the bonds forming between them. Finally, with one last push, Zor and his team reached the finish line, dropping the log with cheers. "We did it," Zor exclaimed, his heart racing with joy. The Deathworlders clapped, impressed by their determination. "Great teamwork," Captain Reed shouted, his smile wide. "You've shown that with unity, anything is possible." As the stars began to twinkle above, Zor and his classmates felt a sense of pride. They had learned so much in such a short time, not only about the Deathworlders, but also about themselves. They realized that strength was not just in fighting, it was in supporting each other and working together. That night, As they settled down around the fire, Zor felt a warmth in his heart. He had come to learn about the Deathworlders, but he had found something even more valuable: friendship and the spirit of teamwork. He looked forward to what the next day would bring, knowing that their adventure was just beginning. The trials of the jungle. The morning sun broke through the thick canopy of leaves, casting a golden glow on the campsite. Zor woke up, stretching and feeling the excitement of the new day. Today promised even more adventures with the Deathworlders. He quickly gathered with his classmates, eager to see what Captain Reed had planned. The group sat around the fire, breakfast sizzling in the pan. The Deathworlders cooked more meat from the Archon, and the delicious aroma filled the air. Zor couldn't help but feel grateful for the opportunity to experience this incredible journey. As they enjoyed their meal, Captain Reed spoke up. "Today, we will venture into the jungle. You will face trials that test your skills and teamwork. It will be challenging, but you will learn a lot about yourselves." Zor's heart raced with excitement and nervousness. "What kind of trials?" he asked, his curiosity piqued. Reed smiled. "You will navigate through the jungle, find hidden markers, and complete various tasks that require both strength and cleverness. It's a way for us to bond and grow together." The students cheered, ready for the challenge ahead. After finishing breakfast, they gathered their gear and followed the Deathworlders into the thick jungle, the sounds of chirping insects and rustling leaves surrounding them. As they entered the jungle, Zor was amazed by the beauty of the vibrant plants and colorful creatures. He had never seen anything like it. Giant trees towered above them, and strange flowers bloomed in all shades of the rainbow. After a while, they reached a clearing, and Captain Reed explained the rules. "You will split into teams, and each team will be given a map with 3 markers to find. At each marker, you'll face a task. The first team to complete all tasks and return here wins." The students nodded, excitement bubbling in their chests. Zor felt a surge of determination. He wanted to prove himself to the Deathworlders and his classmates. They quickly divided into teams, and Zor found himself paired with Leela and Nyx. "Let's stick together and communicate," Zor suggested as they studied the map. "We can do this." With a plan in mind, they set off, following the map through the dense underbrush. The jungle was full of sounds: birds singing, leaves rustling, and distant animal calls. Zor felt a mix of awe and fear, but he pushed forward, determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. After a while, they reached their first marker, a giant tree with a rope hanging from a sturdy branch. A note attached to the rope read, "Swing across the pit to retrieve your next clue." Zor's heart raced. "I'll go first," he said, stepping forward. He grabbed the rope, feeling its rough texture against his palms. Taking a deep breath, he swung out over the pit below, feeling the rush of air against his face. With a bit of luck and determination, Zor landed on the other side, clutching the clue tightly. "I did it," he shouted, excitement bubbling in his chest. "Your turn, Leela." Leela followed, her face a mix of concentration and joy. With a steady grip and a confident swing, she made it across. Nyx, filled with determination, went next, and soon all 3 were celebrating together, the clue in hand. They quickly deciphered the clue, which led them to their next marker, a rocky area with a steep incline. A challenge lay ahead. Climb to the top and signal your teammates from above. Zor looked at the rocky slope, his heart pounding. "We can do this," he said, his voice steady. They started climbing, using the rough surfaces of the rocks to pull themselves up. It was difficult, but they worked together, encouraging one another. "Keep going. We're almost there," Leela shouted, her eyes shining with determination. Zor felt a rush of adrenaline as they reached the top, the view breathtaking. They could see the jungle stretching out for miles, with their campsite in the distance. Zor waved down to his friends, signaling that they had made it. "Great job." Nyx cheered, his voice filled with excitement. Now let's find that last clue. As they descended, they felt a sense of accomplishment. They were learning to rely on each other, overcoming challenges together. The bond between them grew stronger with each task they completed. Finally, they reached their last marker, hidden behind a thicket of bushes. A sign read, "Complete a physical challenge. Work together to lift the boulder and place it on the pedestal." Zor and his teammates looked at each other, determination in their eyes. They approached the massive boulder, its weight daunting. "On three," Zor said. "1, 2, 3. They pushed with all their might, straining against the boulder. It felt heavy, but they worked in sync, each person contributing their strength. Slowly but surely they lifted it off the ground, inching it toward the pedestal. As they heaved, Zor felt the sweat trickling down his brow. "Keep going. We can do this," he shouted, his voice filled with encouragement. With one final effort, they placed the boulder on the pedestal, their faces flushed with exertion. They stood back, panting but proud. They had done it. As they caught their breath, Captain Reed and the other Deathworlders appeared, clapping their hands. "Well done, team," Reed exclaimed, his face beaming with pride. "You worked together beautifully." Zor felt a surge of joy. They had faced every challenge and completed each task, growing stronger as a team. It wasn't just about winning. It was about the lessons learned and the friendships forged. As they made their way back to the campsite, Zor reflected on the day. They had faced the jungle's trials together, and through teamwork and determination, they had emerged victorious. The adventure was just beginning, and Zor felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, with his friends by his side. "You said, the secrets of the jungle." The sun hung high in the sky as Zor and his classmates returned to the campsite, their hearts still racing from the day's trials. Laughter and cheers filled the air as the students celebrated their accomplishments. The Deathworlders joined in, praising each team for their efforts. Zor felt a deep sense of pride. They had all grown stronger together. After a quick meal, Captain Reed gathered everyone around the fire once more. "You did an excellent job today," he said, his voice warm and encouraging. "But the jungle has more to teach you. Tomorrow, we'll explore deeper into its secrets." Zor's curiosity was piqued. "What kind of secrets?" he asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Reed smiled, his gaze shifting to the thick trees surrounding them. "The jungle is alive with creatures and mysteries. You will learn about survival and respect for the environment. It's essential for understanding the balance of life." The students nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. They were ready for whatever the jungle had in store for them. That night, as they settled into their tents, Zor couldn't sleep. His mind raced with thoughts about the jungle and its secrets. He imagined all the creatures that might be hidden within the shadows and the lessons waiting to be uncovered. The thrill of adventure coursed through him. Morning arrived with a chorus of bird songs, and Zor jumped out of his tent, eager to start the day. After breakfast, they gathered around Captain Reed, who explained their plan. "Today, we will go on a nature walk. You will learn about the plants and animals that live here. Pay attention. Some may even be useful for survival." The group set off into the jungle, moving deeper than they had before. The vibrant greenery surrounded them, and Zor felt a sense of wonder. He listened carefully as Reed pointed out various plants, explaining their uses. "This plant," Reed said, pointing to a broadleaf green, "is known as the healing leaf. It can be used to treat cuts and scrapes. You should remember it." Leela leaned closer, taking mental notes. "What about that one?" she asked, gesturing to a cluster of bright red flowers. "Good question," Reed replied, smiling. "That is the fire blossom. It's beautiful, but beware. It's highly toxic. Never touch it without gloves." As they walked, Zor began to notice how interconnected everything was. The plants, the animals, and the air all worked together to create life. He felt a growing respect for the jungle and its many inhabitants. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. Everyone froze, their hearts racing. Captain Reed raised a hand, signaling silence. "Stay quiet and observe," he whispered. From the underbrush, a small creature emerged, a fluffy, orange animal with bright green eyes. It looked around curiously before darting away. Zor watched in awe. "What was that?" he whispered to Leela. "That's a greeble," Reed answered, grinning. "They're harmless but very fast. If you see one, you'll likely never catch it." As they continued their exploration, Zor felt more connected to the jungle. The vibrant colors and lively sounds captivated him. But as they ventured deeper, the atmosphere changed. The air grew heavier, and the sounds of the jungle seemed to fade away. "Stay close together," Captain Reed instructed, sensing the tension. "This part of the jungle is less traveled. We need to be cautious." Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing where ancient trees stood tall and proud. In the center was a massive stone structure covered in vines, its surface etched with mysterious symbols. It looked like a forgotten temple. Zor felt a shiver of excitement. "What is this place?" he asked, stepping closer. "This," Reed said, his voice filled with awe, "is an ancient ruin. It's believed to be a site of worship for the creatures that once lived here. Few have seen it, and even fewer understand its secrets." The students gathered around, examining the symbols. Leela traced her fingers over the carvings, her face filled with wonder. "Do you think there are still creatures here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Possibly," Reed replied, his expression serious. "But we must respect this place. It's essential to understand the history and significance of such sites." Just then, Zor noticed something glinting among the roots of a tree nearby. Curiosity getting the better of him, he crouched down to investigate. He brushed away the leaves and dirt, revealing a small ornate amulet. It shimmered in the dappled sunlight, a beautiful design of twisting vines, and a central stone that sparkled like a star. "Look what I found," Zor exclaimed, holding the amulet up for everyone to see. The students gasped, their eyes wide with intrigue. "That's incredible," Leela said, stepping closer. "Do you think it's valuable?" Captain Reed approached, his expression a mix of caution and curiosity. "It could be, but remember, we must consider its origin. It may belong to the creatures that once inhabited this place. We should leave it here as a sign of respect." Zor felt a pang of disappointment but nodded, understanding the importance of respecting the jungle's secrets. He gently placed the amulet back in its hiding spot, determined to honor the past. As they continued to explore the ruins, Zor felt a deep sense of connection to the jungle and its history. It wasn't just about the trials they faced or the challenges ahead. It was about learning, understanding, and respecting the world around them. That day marked a turning point for Zor and his classmates. They realized that the jungle was not just a place of adventure. It was a living, breathing entity with stories to tell and lessons to share. With newfound respect, they left the ancient site behind, their hearts filled with the spirit of discovery and unity. As they made their way back to the campsite, Zor felt grateful for the experiences they had shared. They had faced trials together, uncovered secrets, and grown as individuals and as a team. He knew that the journey was far from over, and he couldn't wait to see what awaited them in the days to come. Shadows in the jungle. The sun dipped low in the sky, painting the jungle in hues of orange and purple. As Zor and his classmates returned to the campsite, they were filled with excitement and stories to share about the ancient ruins. The day had deepened their bond with each other and the jungle. However, an undercurrent of unease lingered in the air, hinting that something more awaited them. Captain Reed gathered everyone around the fire as darkness settled in. "Today, you faced the secrets of the jungle and learned the importance of respect," he said, his voice steady. "But the jungle also holds dangers that we must prepare for." Zor felt a shiver run down his spine. He glanced at his classmates, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and concern. "What kind of dangers?" he asked, unable to suppress his growing apprehension. Reed leaned closer, his expression serious. There are creatures in these woods that don't take kindly to visitors. Some can be aggressive, especially if they feel threatened. It's essential to stay alert and work as a team. Leela crossed her arms, her brow furrowed. How do we protect ourselves? Knowledge is your best defense, Reed replied. Learn the behaviors of the creatures you encounter. If you understand their actions, you can avoid dangerous situations. The group nodded, absorbing his words. Zor felt a mix of excitement and fear. They had come to learn about the jungle, but now they had to face its darker side. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above, Zor and his friends shared stories of their experiences, laughing and joking to ease the tension. But as night fell, Zor couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. That evening, Zor settled into his sleeping bag, the sounds of the jungle buzzing around him. He closed his eyes, trying to relax, but sleep eluded him. The rustling of leaves and distant calls of creatures kept him on edge. Suddenly, a loud roar shattered the calm of the night, echoing through the trees. Zor bolted upright, his heart racing. The students scrambled out of their tents, fear etched on their faces. What was that? Nix exclaimed, wide-eyed. Captain Reed emerged, his expression serious. Stay close. We need to assess the situation. Zor felt the adrenaline coursing through him as they huddled together, eyes darting around the dark jungle. The roar came again, closer this time. It sounded powerful and angry. We should gather our gear and prepare, Reed said, his voice calm but firm. If we need to defend ourselves, we will do it together. The students quickly gathered their equipment, trying to remain quiet. Zor's mind raced with thoughts of the dangers lurking in the shadows. What kind of creature could make such a terrifying sound? Moments later, they heard the heavy thud of footsteps approaching. The ground vibrated beneath them. Zor felt his heart pound in his chest as he peered into the darkness, straining to see what was coming. Suddenly, a massive shape burst through the underbrush. A towering beast with sharp teeth and fierce eyes. Its fur was dark and matted, and its muscles rippled as it moved. The creature let out a roar, sending a chill down Zor's spine. Stay back, Captain Reed shouted, stepping forward protectively. We don't want to provoke it. The beast growled low, its eyes locking onto the group. Zor felt a mix of fear and awe. This was a Deathworld creature, and it was both beautiful and terrifying. We need to create a distraction, Reed whispered. Leela, Nix, and Zor, gather anything you can throw. We'll try to divert its attention. Quickly, they scoured the ground for rocks and branches, gathering a small pile. As they prepared, Zor's mind raced. What if this creature attacked? Would they be able to escape? Once they had enough, Captain Reed signaled for silence. On 3, we throw. Aim for the bushes to the left to distract it. Zor nodded, clutching a large rock. He felt a surge of determination as he prepared for the plan. 1, 2, 3. They hurled the objects into the underbrush. The sound of rocks and branches crashing startled the beast, its gaze shifting toward the noise. Zor's heart raced as it growled and prowled closer to the source of the sound. Now, back to the tents, Reed commanded, and they sprinted away, adrenaline pushing them forward. Zor's legs felt like lead, but he pushed through the fear, following his friends. As they reached the tents, Reed led them into the small clearing nearby. Stay low and quiet, he instructed, his voice steady. If we can remain hidden, the creature may lose interest. They huddled together, breathless and frightened. The sounds of the jungle filled their ears, mixed with the distant growls of the beast. Zor felt a knot of anxiety twist in his stomach. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, but eventually, the growls faded into the distance. The jungle returned to its rhythmic sounds of chirping insects and rustling leaves. Is it gone? Nix whispered, peeking out from behind a tree. Reed cautiously stepped forward, scanning the area. I think so. But we need to stay alert. This was a close call. Zor exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. They had faced the danger together and survived. The experience had shown him the strength of teamwork and the importance of staying united. As dawn broke, the jungle slowly woke up, the sunlight filtering through the leaves. Zor looked at his friends, their faces pale but determined. They had been tested in ways they never expected, and they had emerged stronger. Captain Reed gathered them once more. You faced your fears last night and came through as a team. Remember this lesson. The jungle is not just a place of beauty, but also of danger. Always respect it. Zor nodded, feeling a newfound appreciation for the challenges ahead. They were becoming more than just students. They were explorers, united in their quest to uncover the mysteries of the jungle. With the dawn bringing a sense of hope, Zor felt ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, they would face the challenges, respect the secrets, and learn from the jungle that had become their classroom. The Feast of the Deathworlders. With the dawn breaking brightly over the jungle, Zor and his classmates felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The encounter with the beast had left them shaken, but it also fueled their determination to explore further. Captain Reed, noticing their renewed energy, gathered them for the day's adventure. Today, we'll venture deeper into the jungle, he announced, his voice filled with enthusiasm. I've heard tales of the Deathworlders and their unique feast rituals. It's time for you to witness one firsthand. The students exchanged curious glances. Zor's heart raced at the thought of seeing these mysterious beings. He had only heard stories about them, powerful creatures capable of surviving in the harshest conditions. What do they eat? Leela asked, her eyes wide. Anything that lives in their territory, Reed replied with a grin. But they have a particular taste for the large monsters that roam these parts. Today, we may get to see one of their feasts. As they trekked through the thick underbrush, the air buzzed with energy. Zor felt the heat of the sun on his skin and listened to the cacophony of the jungle. Birds sang overhead, and the scent of damp earth filled his nostrils. Every sound made him feel alive. After walking for some time, they reached a clearing. In the center stood a large gathering of Deathworlders, their imposing forms towering over the smaller jungle creatures. Zor felt a rush of awe and fear as he observed them. Their skin was a mix of vibrant colors, with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Look at their strength, Nix whispered, his eyes wide. They're enormous. Captain Reed nodded, pointing to a massive creature in the center. That one is the leader. Watch closely. This is where the feast will take place. As they watched, Zor felt a mix of respect and fascination. The Deathworlders began to chant, their voices deep and resonant. It was a rhythm that echoed through the jungle, creating a sense of unity among them. Then, with powerful movements, they brought forward a massive carcass, a gigantic space monster. Zor's stomach churned at the sight, but he was unable to look away. The Deathworlders worked together, showcasing their strength and teamwork as they prepared for the feast. They hunt and gather as a community, Reed explained quietly. This feast is not just for survival, it's a celebration of their strength and unity. As the Deathworlders tore into the meat, the jungle filled with the sounds of their powerful roars and the crackling of bones. Zor could see the joy on their faces as they shared the bounty with one another. The sight was both gruesome and mesmerizing. Why do they feast like this? Leela asked, still observing the scene in awe. It's part of their culture, Reed replied. Every meal they share reinforces their bonds and reminds them of their survival in this harsh world. Zor watched as the Deathworlders feasted, their camaraderie evident. He realized that their strength came not just from their size, but from their unity. It sparked a thought in him. Teamwork was vital, whether among humans or these extraordinary beings. As the feast continued, Zor felt a surge of courage. Can we get closer? He whispered to Reed. I want to understand them better. Reed considered for a moment, then nodded. We'll approach slowly, but remember to be respectful. We are guests in their world." The group moved closer, careful to remain hidden. Zor's heart raced as he drew near the gathering. He could hear the Deathworlders laughing and celebrating, their eyes glinting with joy. It was a moment of connection, and he felt honored to witness it. Suddenly, one of the Deathworlders turned, its piercing gaze locking onto Zor. Time seemed to freeze as the creature approached, its massive form looming over him. Zor's breath caught in his throat, but he stood his ground, meeting its gaze with determination. To his surprise, the Deathworlder sniffed the air and let out a low growl, not of aggression, but of curiosity. It tilted its head, studying him with an intensity that made Zor's heart race. "Stay calm," Reed whispered, watching the interaction closely. The other Deathworlders paused, turning their attention to Zor. He felt a wave of anxiety wash over him, but he focused on the creature in front of him. This was a moment of connection, an opportunity to understand a being from a world he had only imagined. Then, to Zor's amazement, the Deathworlder lowered its massive head, allowing him to reach out and touch its fur. The texture was rough but warm. Zor's heart swelled with a mix of awe and respect. "This is incredible," Zor murmured, feeling a connection he never expected. "They're not just monsters, they have a culture." Reed smiled, seeing the bond forming between Zor and the creature. "Exactly. They're survivors, just like us." The other Deathworlders watched with interest, their growls softening as they observed this exchange. Zor felt a surge of confidence. He had stepped beyond fear and into understanding, bridging the gap between their worlds. After a moment, the Deathworlder stood tall again, letting out a rumbling roar that echoed through the clearing. Zor felt the sound vibrate in his chest, a sign of acceptance. The jungle erupted with life as the other creatures responded, joining in a chorus of calls. As the feast continued, Zor turned back to his friends, excitement coursing through him. "This is what we came for, to learn and connect." Captain Reed nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "You've done well, Zor. This experience will stay with you forever." As they stepped back to observe, Zor realized that this was just the beginning of their adventure. They had discovered the strength of the Deathworlders, not just as powerful beings, but as a community united in survival and celebration. The jungle, with all its dangers and wonders, was a place of connection, a living tapestry of life that taught them valuable lessons. Zor felt more determined than ever to uncover the secrets of this world, knowing that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead.